Well, another woman that has been part of the Silver Ferns prep is former head coach Yvonne Willering, who joins us now. Kia ora, Yvonne. Welcome to Inside Netball. Thank you for joining us.
No, it's a pleasure.
Now, we saw the Silver Ferns at the Cadbury Series. What excites you about this side?
Yeah, and it was interesting because some people were quite disappointed with the outcome, especially against men. I certainly was disappointed with the fact that it went from 16 goals, well, I think to 19 goals. But the series in itself, I think was great preparation for the Ferns going into the Com Games. You had a situation, 4 games in 4 days, and also you had the variety. And I think the different teams provided that. New Zealand men, obviously they're aerial, they have tremendous height at both ends of the court. The mixed team was unpredictable, and so you weren't quite sure what you were going to get there. Then you had the New Zealand A, and they were in a situation, some of those players obviously wanting to try to prove their worth. So, yeah, I think that it was great preparation, and don't worry about the scores. It's probably more about the performance out on court. And I think some of the players stood up.
You say don't worry about the scores. It's hard not to. I mean, it was, just about 20 goals in that final. What do you think the Ferns would take out of that they have to work on?
Yeah, and I think obviously that's more about Dame Nolene, what she's going to do with the team from here. And you've got to appreciate it's a situation where they were trying to get combinations together. And I think, like in the past, you've had a situation where we've had the Falau, the Langman, and the Kopuas, and we knew that they had, obviously there was a level of competence they were going to have, and then they never fell below that. So you always knew what you're going to get from them, and sometimes obviously you've got the 100%. Whereas now you've got a situation, I think some of the players did step up. You had Nowicki and Wilson. I thought that was a pretty good combination. You've got Souness in the middle and Kelly Jury at the other end, and then there'll be other players that will come into that. Only problem with that is that it's untried. I mean, yes, they played in that series. They'd already lost the series anyway, but they haven't been tried in a real pressure situation. And that is something that is a little bit of a concern, obviously, going into Com Games.
You love your defence. We know that's where you've got your real specialty. What did you think about the defence? Were they picking up enough ball? Who stood up for you in that goal defence position? Because they have really only sort of picked 3 defenders, unless you slide Kayla across, which we didn't see at all. She only played in that wing defence position.
I think you're right. I think Jury certainly was stability at the back in the goalkeeper position, but then you had your Fitzpatricks and Karaka sharing the goal defence role. And again, the wing defence role was shared between Heffernan and Johnson. The thing is, especially against teams with height, and you're going to get height, not quite the same as the New Zealand men, but Jamaica, I think Jamaica is a real concern to us. They've got height at both ends of the court, so it's how we're going to deal with that. But the thing is, we shouldn't be leaving it until the encircle defence. You've got to take the ball earlier. And I think that the Ferns were guilty of not looking for the ball earlier, and when I say earlier, I'm talking about through the mid-court rather than waiting for that encircle defence. We know Kelly Jury can come out for intercepts, but we need other players to step up right from the centre pass off.
Yvonne, you say they're untried. Is part of the problem with this Commonwealth Games arrangement is that you have all the smaller countries first. I mean, we start with Northern Ireland and then you sort of coast, kapow, you hit the big teams. What can you do to prepare yourselves for that?
Yeah, it's a hard one, and you've got to understand, like you can say, like how we're going to compete. It's difficult because we've got the situation, obviously you've still got COVID in there as well. You can have injury concerns. Now remember, once you get into the actual situation of the competition, you can't replace players. So whether it's injured or not, you are stuck, well, not stuck, but those are the players you have to deal with, irrelevant of how many injuries or concerns you have regarding players being able to take the court. So that's why some of these players were picked for 2 positions rather than 1. Now, you've got a situation, absolutely, New Zealand very fortunate, they've got easy, well, I won't say easy games, but certainly the top games come later on in the competition, so they have the ability to get different combinations together. But you cannot rely just on a main 7. You've got to go through with your 12 players. So there'll be substitutions made in those earlier games, and you won't see those same substitution, obviously, when it comes to the crunch, like against England, Jamaica, or Australia, whoever we may be playing. Obviously, we are playing England there. So, that's a situation where you don't want to show your total worth in your total your top 7. Although I think we can sit here right now and almost predict who the top 7 will be, and with 1 or 2 subs I think will make a difference, like particularly that wing defence position. Heffernan will go out looking for intercepts, whereas Johnson is probably more the tighter defensive player and will do more one-on-one marking. So I think that could be a tactical substitution there.
The 4 you recognised before, I think we totally agree with you, Souness, with Nweke and Wilson. But how do you as a coach, I think I entirely agree with you, it's about managing a whole tournament. So how do you manage that tournament so you are giving your settled 7 that you're working towards enough game time together while keeping their leagues fresh? Is that one of the biggest challenges of a tournament like a Commonwealth Games?
Yeah, and you're right. It's all about the preparation. And boy, did Dame Nolding do lots of preparation. I mean, right down, and I didn't realise this, right down to the finals time, and they played the series, at 4 o'clock, and that's in theory going to be the final at the Com Games. You can only do so much preparation, with regards to that, and you can have all the different scenarios as to what could happen. But it is difficult with that combination. I think sometimes what she needs to do is play a set combination for 1 or 2 quarters in the earlier games just to get a feel for it. Similarly, she hasn't shown all her worth with regards to tactical play. I mean, as you indicated, I have been involved earlier on. There are a few things still that haven't come out on court, because I asked Dame Nolan why she didn't utilise them. She went, no, we'll leave that for the Commonwealth Games. Also appreciate they've got a few games, preparation games, leading into the Commonwealth Games, so that's where they may start doing some of this stuff. But you're right, this combination, you've got to keep that in perspective. It's all very well doing it in the earlier games, but is it going to be the same when you get to the harder games? Like you can get away with, for instance, the high balls into the shooter, which you wouldn't be able to do against England or certainly not against Jamaica. So they certainly have to keep those earlier games in perspective as to what they're trying to achieve.
Does it worry you at all that, so much of our hopes seem to rest on the shoulders of a 20-year-old, Grace Nweke? We're not the same team, or it appears we're not the same team without her. And I mean, is that a real Achilles heel?
Yeah, that's a concern, and you're right. It showed up again in the series we've just had, the Cadbury Series. When she came out on court, it made a difference. When she went off the court, and I think she went off the court against the mixed team, and the mixed team actually won that quarter. So yeah, she's an integral part, whether she likes it or not. I thought she stepped up pretty well to the, and you can say, the physical aspects, and that's another issue anyway, because I also believe that sometimes it's their shooters that are hurting that
from a defender.
Defenders, yes. But I think there is a lot of pressure. Well, pressure, she's a Silver Fern. You're going to have that pressure put on you, but certainly there is quite a reliance on her. Absolutely.
So, Yvonne, if you look at that Cadbury Series as a whole, do you feel more confidence in this team following this Cadbury Series, or did it throw up more questions for you?
Initially when the team was selected, and I probably was exactly the same as other people, I wish so-and-so had got in the team. Appreciate that the team was selected with most players, apart from Grace Nweke, being able to play 2 positions, which was really important. And also the fitness aspect came into it. And some of the players just didn't pass the fitness criteria. So that's the way it was. But yeah, through the preparation of the series, and also I've spoken to Knowles as well, I think that there's an aspect of confidence. Can they win it? There's so many aspects coming into this. But I don't think there is quite the pressure from the New Zealand public. I think the New Zealand public will be just happy if we're on the dais, even if it's third. But they're going there, obviously, to win gold, and that's all there is to it. But some people are saying, it's preparation for the World Championship, and I don't go along with that. This is an important event, and we need to be seen to be at our best. And I just don't want to see us reliant on certain individuals. And I think at the moment we are. And you've mentioned Nweke, but also I think there's a great reliance on Kelly Jury in the back.
Well, Yvonne, when you're talking about the other teams, who do you see as our biggest threat at the Commonwealth Games?
Jamaica. I think Jamaica probably would be one of the best. Some of their players appreciate now that they have played in the Australian League. In the past, the Jamaican players only came together for big events like the Com Games and the World Champs, and they were playing basketball. But now these players are not playing basketball; they're playing netball at the highest level. And you've got your Fowler there, you've got your Sterling at the other end of the court. They know what intense competition is about. So they're going to be a tremendous strength, and you can never underestimate, obviously, Australia. They've got certainly different combinations available to them. They've got speed through the midcourt. You've got Bruce at one end, and we always bring up Bruce, what we're going to do to our shooters. But then at the other end, I really rate Greta Berta. She's big tipper. And I really rate her play. Why? Because she just provides something different. I love her layups. I like her basketball injection into the game as well. And she's really starting to shoot as well. Now, in the past, when we've seen her, she's basically been a feeder. But now, again, she's actually also shooting them. So, yeah, they're going to be strong. But at this stage, we need to focus. Well, the Ferns need to focus on their own play and getting it together. Certainly in combination, but it's also about each player taking responsibility.
So, Yvonne, you've had a lot of involvement over the years with actually a number of countries, but with the Silver Ferns. So what happens with you now? Do they, feed back to you, or do you just wave them off and say good luck?
We'll stay in contact, but there's nothing else that can be done. It's all very well saying they should be doing this. No, this is now about fine-tuning. They know what's required. During the Cadbury Series, there were aspects of the game that just, weren't good enough in the story. So those are things they now have to fix up. This is no longer about introducing new tactics to the team. They just really need to just start nailing it together. They now know, having lost the series, they know that there's quite a lot of work still to be done. So they're not in a comfort zone, and they shouldn't be in a comfort zone. And this is about being growth players, and they need to just learn from every outing. Defensively, I find it interesting. Sometimes there's so much talk going on, and I'm going to stop the chat and just get on with the work. And they do know what to do, because when you question the players, they have the right answers. But now it's a situation, put it into the game, and that's what they just need to do, and that's what they need to focus on. So they don't need any more outside stimulus. I think they've had all that. Certainly they've had a number of coaches coming in. So right now, because they're now away from the country, they can totally focus on what lays ahead. And the village isn't going to be the same as we've seen in Commonwealth Games in the past, where all the sports come together, because obviously with COVID, there will be quite a number of hotels involved.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, Yvonne, was the rules, because I understand there is some kind of get-together a few days before the games actually start to go over how the rules are going to be interpreted. It's not about changing the rules, but you can imagine the umpires are coming from here, there and everywhere. What's your take on, I think there's a couple of rules that you're a bit perhaps concerned about from New Zealand's point of view?
Oh, majorly. I bring it up at every opportunity, and we'll do it again right now. Yeah, I mean, there'll be no rules. There will be no new rules implemented. That happens 1st of January 2024, and then you have something till September to actually introduce those, to actually implement them. But right now, prior to the Com Games, there will be a get-together, sort of a seminar with the umpires and also the coaches, and hopefully also the captains will be invited to that. And you've got a situation where some of the rules will be discussed there. And I know the blood rule will be discussed there, substitutions, how that's done, whether it's a rolling sub or whatever happens. But the one that I am really nervous about, well, there's two actually. Australia should be nervous about one of them, but the one I'm really nervous about for New Zealand is the short pass. Because you can have a look at it, and that's an interpretation. The interpretation now, I mean, as the rule stands, it's changed from being a person being able to come through to a hand being able to come through. But for some reason, we no longer take the defender into account, because, I don't think there's even such a thing as a short pass anymore, because you'll appreciate the defender has to stay 0.9 of a metre away from the passer, because otherwise it's obstruction. So how the heck can they get the ball, from when it goes like from shooter to shooter or from wing attack to shooter. In fact, you can use this interpretation the way we do it, even from a centre pass off. Now, I've put this to the international, to World Netball, and, basically they've indicated that it's only New Zealand that is interpreted this way. Now, that's okay, but it does mean that once we start playing, appreciate we will not be having New Zealand umpires officiating on any of our games. It'll be so-called neutral umpires. So, the Ferns have to adjust their game accordingly. And yep, the first time that they're penalised, then they have to stop doing it. But it's really become part of our game.
I'm right with you. I hate the new interpretation. I feel like it's almost allowing you to be a bit lazier because you can just stand in front of someone and pick it up as opposed to having to do your movement. But Yvonne, I know we've done it in the past, or the Silver Ferns have done it in the past. How important, and is there going to be opportunities to bring some of these neutral umpires into the Silver Ferns training before the Commonwealth Games? Do you know if there's going to be that opportunity? Because it's pretty tight towards the start.
Absolutely it is. No, I don't think they will. Certainly they've got a couple of training games lined up, which is great. And if they can, even if they just bring in the England umpires, but I can't see that happening because they're doing their own preparation. They may come in, hopefully they do, but there's no way. I mean, they're going to get umpires from all sorts of different countries, so it's all very well getting an umpire from Australia, but will they interpret it exactly the same as an umpire from Jamaica, for instance, or South Africa? So yeah, they're just going to have to be aware, and that's why hopefully in that meeting everything will be, the interpretations will all be discussed, and all the teams will come together on that. Because the other rule that's also a biggie for Australia, and also we do it, is that when you shoot for goal, how you have a player, you've got the defender marking, and then the shooter comes in to screen. Now that has been a major in Australia because it's caused contacts, obviously. Now who is actually the contacting player? So that's come into the game as well, where you're defending. We use it. We've seen our shooters, being screened by the other shooter for the shot at goal, and then they're available for a rebound. Again, you've got a situation, it's obstruction, and I'm going, why is it obstruction when it's a defender, but not when it's an attacker? So, yep, I know I'm with the defenders on this case.
Before we let you go, your top 3 at the Commonwealth Games, who's going to be standing there with the medals around their necks?
Don't go there. I mean,
we had to try.
Yeah, it's so interesting because obviously I would want every team to be at their strength. You don't want anyone out through being COVID positive. You don't want anyone getting injured. I think that you want to be there having, you've played the best, but also playing against opposition that are at their best. I mean, you've already indicated England's got another injury, and England is minus a few of the players as well. So when you look into that, there is a top 4. And what I like about this now talking from an international perspective, it is no longer about it just being an Australian-New Zealand final. Yeah. And I don't think you can go there because right now, you've got Jamaica definitely. So I think your top 3 still would be, I mean, obviously we're going to have to go with the Ferns, but Australia and Jamaica will be right up there. And you can talk England, but England's had a few injuries as well. So I think the top 3 would be those teams. And I find it interesting. We're going for gold, but I think basically the New Zealand public will be happy even if we get bronze. But I think all of us, we want gold.
Oh, that
too right.
And Yvonne, you were gold for us today. We thank you so much for your insight and joining us on Inside Netball.
Can I just ask one thing? How we do all the coaching and everything, and it was so interesting because Jenny, you were involved in this. What I have found is when you go into camps, the actual language has changed in the camps. Like we've now got CPA, which is centre pass attack, and CPB, and I've learnt all this. But the latest, Jenny, that you came up against was let's grind it out. And I thought, okay? But the latest one, and you figure this one out, is snowball.
So yes, we did hear a few snowballs.
We had that, and that's, yes, because I was a bit shocked at the grinding, all that grinding that was going on. And then they said, no snowball, and I wondered if it was snowflake, but hey.
They're keeping us thinking.
It's
See you,
so
people.
much fun.
Thanks,
Well, thank
Yvonne.
you, Yvonne.
Pleasure.